The wall took the dawn without hurry, drinking it as a thirsty thing drinks from a skin, slow and careful so nothing spilled. Castle Black always woke like that in the deep cold, with the wind walking the yard first, its boots crunching the rime before any man dared set his own down. Jon stood at the base of the great lift, gloved hands resting inside his cloak, watching the thin pale light seep into the seams of the world. Breath plumed from Ghost in a steady white ribbon beside him, and a strand of the direwolf's hair had caught a bead of frost so that the creature seemed stitched to the morning by a single bright thread. The brothers who drew dawn watch were shadows moving with a purpose. A builder nursed the pulley at the winch, oiling where the iron bit the wood, and the smell of it cut through the stable stink and the latrine's faint tang. Somewhere a hammer rang, slow and lonely, the smith coaxing a horseshoe flatter, though no horse stood within the yard. Old habits. Men liked the sound of making, even if the shape was for nothing they had on hand. "Lord Commander," said the builder at the winch, soft and respectful in the way men were when they had seen someone not bend where bending would have been easiest. Jon turned his head, nodded. He had not yet learned how to carry that title in all the small ways a man would need to. It sat on his shoulders like a new cloak, warmer than he had a right to want, stiff where the leather collar rubbed, and everyone's eyes on it. The sky to the east peeled back a little more. The white gloom washed the ice like milk poured over cold blue glass, and the shadows edged away, making room for faces and hands. Jon could pick men by their way of moving before he could see their eyes. Dolorous Ed slouching as only Ed slouched, as if the day ahead had already reached into his pocket and come away with his last copper. Bowen Marsh with his chin tucked like a hen's, counting things no one else could see. Othell Yarwick's patient heaviness, the slow gait of a man who had learned from stone, timber, and time. Another sound, softer, a quick, clean rhythm. Samwell's steps. They hurried without running, hustled without taking more space than they ought. Sam was not meant for this cold, for the hard angles of stone and ice. He had made himself into a piece that fit anyway. "You're up early?" Sam puffed, cheeks blown apple red by the wind. "You're up early," Jon answered. "I worried," Sam confessed, and he looked down when he said it, as if the boards at their feet might blush to hear. "About yesterday, about what you chose." Ghost glanced at Sam, then back up the lift shaft, ears pricked for the groan of the timber car climbing the ice chimney. Jon did not answer at once. He looked at the notches the builders had cut into the shaft wall, saw each gouge of the chisel, the small lines singing where the metal had skipped. Every mark had been a winter. The wall did not keep time as men did, counted by storms and by hands. "I am still choosing it," Jon said, "and will be for a time." Sam nodded so hard the fur around his hood fanned like a shaken reed. "Maester Eamon, he told me something once, that mercy is not always to spare a man's life, and cruelty not always to take it. A wise ruler knows the difference," he said, and then he looked at me and said, "Samwell, go fetch more wood, and do not fall on the stairs." Sam offered a small smile that flashed and was gone. Jon's breath steamed in front of him again. The old man always did like to be right twice in one sentence. He said other things, Sam tried, about boys and men. Jon had not slept easily. Dreams came with scraps of Winterfell, with the taste of snow that was not this snow and with voices he could not keep. Other nights, he thought he heard a head strike a block and the thumping of the severed thing as it rolled, rolling, and the sight of Slynt's neck. That was in some other telling of his life, not in this one. He had watched the man's face yesterday, the leap of disbelief, the sweating anger, the frightened pride. He'd caught in it something he knew too well, the need to come away from a moment with a story that let you go on living with yourself. In the yard, men moved with buckets. Crossbeams complained. The sound of the wind picked up and pressed against the ice, then let go again, as if the sky were breathing. Jon took it all in, the simple work of staying alive, and set it in his mind like a ledger. "It was not mercy," he told Sam. "Not entirely." "No," Sam said quietly. "I thought not. Janos Slynt is alive, but he is not free." Jon remembered Slynt's mouth opening to refuse him again, remembered the hush caught like a held breath in the throat of the yard. He remembered the way every man's hands had found a task quickly then. Tightening a strap that did not need tightening, checking a bolt in a door that had already been checked, or folding arms and pretending the hands were not there. If Jon had spilled blood, many would have said under their breath that the Old North had shown its axe. A boy become a lord, proving to the world that he could. It would have satisfied something hot in him. But it would have satisfied other men too, and those were not the men he most wanted to be counting. He had stepped out of the path that led to a block and a blade. "You do not command Greyguard," he had said. "You will command nothing for now. You will serve. In the cellars, in the scullery, in the lice and the grease. You will eat when the last man has eaten. You will sleep when the last fire is banked. You will show me 10 days of obedience, and after that 10 more, and when the work is done I will consider what stone you may be set to. If you kneel today, you kneel to the watch, not to me." For a heartbeat the yard had been cut from sound. Then Slynt's knees had creaked, and the clumsy scuffle of a man who was not used to the ground acknowledging him. He had bent. Face smoky with shame, but he had bent. That was the moment Jon knew. Once a man bent for something other than pride, he might bend for duty afterward. "You made him bow," Sam said now, still trying the words against his own fear. "Men remember that. He did not win." "We all lost something," Jon murmured. They both fell silent as the lift car started down with a jarring rattle of chains. A pair of rangers stepped off when it jolted to a halt, frost netting their beards. They looked like they had been breathed out by the forest and were not sure they wanted to be around stone again. One thumped a hand over his chest to warm it. The other spat a thin rope of pink onto the snow, blood where his lip had cracked. They gave Jon short nods that said, "Not now, Lord Commander. There is a report, and there are saddle sores, and there is always hunger first." Ghost sat, patient. The direwolf's eyes held the stories of snow in them and nothing else. "I should see Maester Eamon," Jon said, "before the day eats itself." He found the Maester in the solar where the heat gathered like a small animal, timid and quick to flee. The brazier smoked. It always did. Eamon sat with a blanket over his knees and a raven perched on the arm of his chair, black against the gray of his beard, all angles and ink. The old man's eyes were filmed with milk, but they turned to the sound of Jon's feet and then toward the shifting of Ghost's bulk. "Lord Commander," Eamon greeted him, the title tasting like a prayer and a jest. "You've made a choice." "I did, and I am still doing it." Jon took the stool opposite. Ghost lay alongside him with a soft thump, spreading as if melting, the fur giving off cold like a heat. "Men often think a choice ends when the mouth closes," Eamon said, fingers moving through the chain at his throat, touching link to link as if to remind himself of each metal and its meaning. "The heart knows better. Tell me how the boy takes it." Jon set his forearms on his knees, a posture he'd inherited from no one in particular. He had seen nearly every man he respected take it at one time or another. A way of folding the self so the piece that talks to itself is closer than the part that talks to others. "The boy wanted an axe," he said. "For his father. For the life taken in King's Landing. For all of it. He wanted to be certain. The man?" He made himself smile a little, the practice of it strange on his lips. "The man saw that the axe would make some men easier to lead but others harder to hold. The man thought the watch needed both kinds. He thought that breaking Slynt's neck would be simple, and that breaking his story would be harder." Eamon leaned back. The raven slid sideways along the arm of the chair, clever head canting, one bright bead of jelly watching them both. "You gave yourself work," the Maester said. "That is almost always wise. Let us see if you will like it." "I do not expect to. No. Men seldom enjoy the medicine they prescribe for their own souls." Eamon reached for the cup at his elbow, found it without fumbling, and took a sip. "There will be those who resent your mercy. There will be those who are grateful and hide it. And there will be a man who is both." "Alistair," Jon guessed. "And Slynt," Eamon said. "Each of them carries more of both than he knows." Jon had tasted bitterness under the second name. Slynt had the smell of treachery to him, and the city, and easy deaths bought dear. Yet his eyes had not been blind when he knelt. He had understood what had been taken from him. The anger in him was not simple. "Bowen Marsh?" Jon asked. "Master of stores counts in his sleep," Eamon said. "He will count the grisly things a hanging does not cost us. And then he will count the slow bleed a festering temper takes. He will tell you the numbers do not add, and he will be both right and wrong. That is counting." Jon rose. He would make for the kitchens. He'd almost rather face wildlings. The kettle heat always made him think of winter nights at Winterfell, of the kitchens there and the smells of bread and onion, brown drippings and oat, and for a moment he would turn, seeking a face that was 10 years gone. He would miss that face then, and the ache would come like a friend who visits too often. "Do you ever tire of giving me advice?" he asked Eamon as a boy asks the wind if it will ever stop blowing. Eamon's mouth made a soft shape, amusement without sound. "I am too old to tire in any new way," he said. "Bring your mercy to my next spoon. They have been niggardly of honey." Jon left the solar with Ghost gliding behind him. The dire wolf paused at a turn and sniffed long at a patch of floor where the sun came through and set dust to showing itself. Ghost's tail moved slowly, as if stirring something in the air that Jon could not see. He wished, not for the first time, that he had words for the things the wolf understood. The kitchens were a cave of steam and banging, heat on every inch of the skin. Hob ruled there, a small king whose crown was the soot that never quite left his fingers no matter how he scrubbed. He was tending a pot that looked large enough to bathe in. Ed Tollett stood near with a ladle as long as a spear, watching thin stew circle as if it might tell him a future he had not asked for. "He shows his face," Ed said when he saw Jon. "Well enough. None of us has much else to show. We're down to chin and cheekbone now." Janos Slynt stood at a table with a cloth in his hands, elbows working as he polished a stack of trenchers. There were more lines around his mouth this morning than yesterday. The corners had been worn into the skin of him. Flour dusted the sleeve of his bad hand where he'd reached and reached again without watching where he put it. He looked up and his eyes, dark and quick, flicked from Jon to Ghost to Hob and then back to Jon again. Watched without staring. The man had learned to read rooms before he learned to read letters. Jon saw what he had expected to see and what he had not. The expected. The sourness in Slynt's mouth. The stiff way he held his shoulders so the weight of all these watching men would not pin him to the table. The unexpected. The way he had already arranged the plates so that the ones with cracks would go to men who did not mind such things and the unchipped to those who did. The old habit of order did not go out of him because shame had gone in. "Hob," Jon said, "any complaints since yesterday?" "About what?" Hob asked, suspicious and fond at once. He had raised stew out of flour, water, and faith for 30 winters. That sort of alchemy smokes a man from the inside. This one? He works. He does not talk save when he must. He's wiped more trenchers than I've got years. If he keeps at it another day, he will polish the wood down to bone. Janos Slynt's lip flickered. It was not quite a smile. A grimace had learned a new trick. "There will be no slacking," Jon said, his voice plain. "If he speaks ill of any brother, report it. If any brother speaks ill to him, report that too." "What if any brother speaks ill to you?" Ed asked. "Shall I report you to yourself? It would save me walking." Ghost's head turned toward Slynt in the still way that made men feel weighed. The dire wolf sniffed once, a simple taste of the air. Slynt did not reach a hand out. He was old enough to have learned that sometimes a creature that can kill you will do you the courtesy of ignoring you so long as you do not ask a different question of it. "Lord Commander," Slynt began, and the title came rough from his mouth, as if he'd been grinding it for a long time and only now thought to spit. "Yes," Jon said, "I will do as told. There is a thing men sometimes do with their eyes when they admit a truth they do not want to. They drop them, not to the feet like a lie but to the hands, as if to watch the tools that do their life." Slynt looked at his hands. They were square, and the nails had gone soft around the edges from the hot water. His wrists looked thicker for the red of the scald. "You will," Jon said softly. And then you will do what is needed. Slynt lifted his eyes then. Needed by whom? He did not ask like a man who hoped for a certain answer. He asked like a man counting doors in a hallway. By the watch, Jon said. Slynt looked at the stack of trenchers, the pot, hob, the wolf. Some men never belonged to anything until a uniform told them they did. Some men belonged to a thing before they knew its name. Slynt had belonged to Flea Bottom and the gold cloaks, to the smell of tar and salt, to the way a city could chew you and spit you out and call that a meal. Now he could decide if he would belong to the cold. Hob, Jon said more loudly, breaking the thread that had begun to tie. Make use of him. If he balks, send for Dolorous Ed. If Ed balks, send for Ghost. I'm the soft path to the wolf, Ed said mournfully. My mother would be proud. You don't have a mother, Hob said. They had had that argument 19 times, and both of them liked it. Jon left them to their heat and their joking. Outside, the air slapped his cheeks with clean hands. Men were dragging a timber through the snow, and the rope burned on their palms. He saw Yarwick's men marking where the new hoist would go. He saw Marsh with a slate, tallying barrels of pickled fish like a prayer. Every number one more good luck charm that might keep winter from finding them too thin to stand. The day soon drew in others. Stannis's men liked to pace on the wall as if they could make a city out of wind by walking it enough. Their knights banged into the watch's ways like two carts in a narrow street. They did not look at Jon with brother's eyes. Their glances weighed him as coin. A little light, perhaps, for a lord commander. He could feel Melisandre without seeing the red of her. She was the kind of heat that made the skin itch from the inside. Later, she would look at him and tell him something a little true that would sit inside him until it felt like a seed with its point in the tender meat of his heart. But that would be later. He did not go to her. Some knowledge seeks you anyway. He went instead to the armory. It was empty save for the smell of oil, leather, iron filing, old blood. Hooks like meat claws hung on the far wall. He ran a hand over the nicks in one of the benches where Donal Noy had once set a blade to edge and had done so in the way that the metal remembered him still. He thought of masters gone. He thought of the ones he had and how little use they might prove if the dead decided this living was an offense they could not forgive. Footsteps came careful behind him. Bowen Marsh. The man stood for a time without speaking, as if the room's quiet needed to teach him something before he broke it. Then, "You will make enemies," he said, as if this were news. "I have them," Jon said. "New ones, old ones with different knives." Bowen's breath came white and measured. "Hanging a man is a simple number. 1 today, 0 tomorrow. This?" He flicked his fingertips at the air, as if he preferred chalk. "This goes on counting. Every day someone will mark the columns. He will be pleased or angry. He will say you are very clever. He will say you hesitate. He will say you are the Stark boy who cannot bring himself to be a Stark man." Jon touched the bench again, because the bench could not speak of him. "And you? I will count whatever you do," Bowen said, "and store it as is my task. We will bleed some either way. I had rather bleed once and bind a cut than bleed in the straw each night." "Would you have bled once if it had been your neck on the block?" Jon asked. Bowen shrugged. "I am too old to pretend to courage I do not have. I like my blood inside better than out." He stepped closer, his voice lower. "Do you mean to use this man?" "Yes." "How?" "As you would salt fish. He is not fresh, but he can pee us through a hunger. He knows suppers I do not." Bowen gave him a look that might have been respect in another man's face, but in his was only careful consideration. "Very well," he said. "I will see that Hob keeps watch. The kitchens have more gossip than any solar. If this Slynt starts a stew of his own, we will know what is in it." Jon nodded. Ghost lifted his head, bright eyes sliding to the doorway. A shape filled it, the shape all rooms made when a king walked in, regardless of the size of the king. Stannis Baratheon had not slept in a bed that forgave him. Everything about him suggested that beds forgave others more quickly than they forgave him. He went to tables like a judge. He came to chairs like a man who asked them if they meant to hold. "Lord Commander," Stannis said. as though the title were a fact like sun or wind, and not the result of 67 favors and feuds winding around one another until they became a rope strong enough to lower the boy into man's work. "Your Grace," Jon said, as though the title were the same. "Word reaches my men that you spared Janos Slynt," Stannis said, and he did not sit. "Word walks faster than truth," Jon said, not to be clever, but because it was what he had. "I put him to work, and not to the sword." Stannis's eyes were the color of old slate, scuffed by many heels. "You may be sentimental. I may be many things," Jon said quietly, "but I am Lord Commander. This was the Watch's judgment." Stannis's mouth made a line. He had only one line, and he used it for anger, hunger, and any other need. "Slynt stood with those who killed your father. I am not my father. That remains to be seen." They stood with that between them. Ghost's lip curled for a breath and then uncurled, uninterested. The dire wolf did not care for kings except as men with hands that could scratch behind an ear or could not. "You will need men to hold your ruined castles," Stannis said at last. "You may not like how they look when they arrive. The living do not sort themselves into brands to make your planning easier." Jon thought of wildlings. He thought of the ones in stockades, of Tormund with a grin like a door thrown wide and shut again with a bang, of spear wives with their hair braided back so it did not get into the stew or the fight. He thought of how their children cried like any other when pinched by cold. "I know," he said. "Do you?" Stannis's voice wore iron, but many of his words were wood. They would take dents, but they burned well. "Mercy for Slynt will look like weakness if you do not use him. Use him hard." "I do not intend to soften him," Jon said. "Good." Stannis did not smile. He did not know how. "I am riding to the night fort by week's end. My men dislike the place. It does not dislike them back. We will see how that goes." When Stannis had gone, the room left behind him took a deeper breath, like a man who has been trying not to show he wants air. Bowen's face took on its ordinary set. "Use him hard," he mimicked under his breath, just enough mocking in it to be heard only where Jon stood. "As if we are speaking of a little mule." "He may be that," Jon said. "He may be a mule that kicks." "Then I will wear boots," Jon said. By midday the light had thinned. Snow had begun with the shy small flakes that lie and say, "We do not mean to stay." By the afternoon the drifts would be making plans. Jon spent an hour with Yarwick, an hour listening to Marsh list the ways in which they would starve, an hour on the wall with the wind telling him long stories he did not follow, and another 40 minutes with Alliser Thorne watching the way the man corrected a boy's grip on a practice sword. Alliser knew the line of a blade the way other men knew the way to their own beds. He looked at Jon and looked away and did not say, "I would have hanged him." He did not say, "You are made of soup and string." He simply hit the boy's blade with his own and made a face at the wobble in it. "You weaken discipline when you spare a man like that," Thorne said at last, as if the observation had forced its way out of him. "You teach men that words weigh less than blades here." "I teach them that obedience matters more than violence," Jon said. "You will help me teach them that." Thorne's mouth twitched in amusement before he hated himself for it. "That was almost a clever thing to say," he acknowledged. "I have seen clever men die of it." "We have all seen men die of many things," Jon said. "Foolishness among them. Alliser turned to the boy and jabbed at his stance again. "All learned from kindly teachers." "You will take a class of new boys," Jon said. "Southern-born. You know how they think I will sound. Show them how to stand." He said it flat because ending statements in iron made them sound less like requests and more like the world itself. Even Thorne had to bow to the world on some days. "I will take them." Thorne's eyes slid toward Jon and away again. "Do not make me babysit Slynt." "I have mothers for that," Jon said. Men ate by shifts. The stew tasted of onion, parsnip, a little salt fish, and something Hobb added when he thought no one watched. Maybe a spoon of barley, maybe a fist of hope. Jon took a bowl and a heel of bread and found a bench where he could put his back to a post and his eyes on the room. He did not hold court. He held silence and waited for the way men move in a place to tell him what he needed to know. Slynt came out from the kitchen with a stack of bowls balanced on his hip, wet cloth over his shoulder to catch heat. He set them down, took 3 steps back to watch where they would go, then disappeared again. When he returned, he had a long spoon and a steady arm. Hob let him stir. That surprised Jon. Hob did not let any man stir who had not earned it. Stirring was knowledge. When Slynt leaned over, steam haloed his shaven scalp. He lifted the spoon, let it fall. He was listening for the bottom of the pot. A city man who had lived by his stomach. Slynt would know what a thin stew sounded like when the scrape kissed a scar left last week by a ladle. A boy laughed too loudly at a jest not worth it. The laugh died under Alicer's eye. Ed sat, the posture of patient suffering, spooning soup as if it were apology and he had determined to be generous. They say, Ed told the air near Jon's ear, that a man can get used to anything. I am not sure this is true. On the other hand, I have not yet tried living in a barrel. Let us see how the winter goes, Jon replied. Ed breathed out as though even size cost something and he had to keep accounts. The old life had too much wood in it, he decided. Chairs, spoons, beds, relatives. This life is mostly cold water and iron. Your jokes have more iron than water, Jon said mildly. I aim to drown in them anyway. After the meal, he found Slynt at the scullery sink, arm going in long strokes, the work soothing to watch the way watching a man sharpen a blade is soothing. The rag moved, water ran, the trencher came up a little cleaner. The rhythm of it could peel the points off thoughts. How long did you sit a lord of the city's watch? Jon asked. Slynt did not turn. Years, he said. How many? Enough to say I did it, Slynt said, and he reached for another board. His voice had the carefulness of a man testing ice. You know the way grain moves through a hungry place. You know the way men duck away from work. You know who steals first and what he leaves behind to make the loss look like chance. Jon stepped closer. You will watch the stores. You will report to Bowen Marsh. Quietly, without offense. You will set traps and bait them with the right cheese. If a man steals because he is wicked, I will deal with him. If he steals because his belly is singing and he thinks I will not hear the song, I will deal with him differently. Slynt's shoulders shifted in an old habit. Not a bow, not a shrug, something between that allowed pride to pretend it had not taken a step back to let sense through. You would have me be a thief catcher again. I would have you be what you are, used for us and not against us. And when I have told you what you need to hear, will you give me a cracked plate again? I will give you what you earn, Jon said. Nothing more, nothing less. Slynt turned his head then, just enough to see Jon out of the corner of his eye. You speak like a book. I learned from one, Jon said and left him. The days fell into their new shape as the snow fell and stuck. Slynt took to hovering at the edges of the common hall, watching how men traded bits of meat for extra bread, how they collected grease and hid it for lamps, how they bragged or did not. He had a way of speaking to 2 men at once without either of them feeling his words were meant for the other. He let a boy think he had discovered a hiding place for a salted herring, and then he stood outside the door and asked the boy for a share as if it were the most natural thing in the world. When the boy flamed, red with guilt, Slynt leaned against the jamb and said, I had 12 of those places in the city and only 9 made me money. The ones that did not were the ones where I put men like you to guarding them. You are a poor conspirator, lad. You sigh too loudly. He took the herring and cut it in 3 with a bit of broken steel, gave the boy the largest piece and said, Now you will tell me where your friend got 2 nails from the smith's scrap. If you lie, I will know. If you tell the truth, I will disguise my gratitude. He presented the nails to Bowen Marsh without flourish. Bowen peered at them as if they held runes. Any man could have found these with his foot where the shavings fall. Yes, Slynt agreed, and any man could have used them to pry a lid from a barrel without making the slot show. This man did not. He used them to scratch his name where he sleeps, likely. Show me the barrel lids. Show me the men with clean fingernails. Bowen's mouth tilted. You were a captain once, he allowed. I was a living one, Slynt said. Jon watched all this as the days cooled further. He did not let himself warm to Slynt. He did not banish warmth either. He put every small thing in the ledger he kept under his ribs. Not a book of forgiveness. A list of debts and settlements. When the letter came from Eastwatch, Cotter Pike's cramped hand dragging words over the page like a sled over deep snow. It spoke of weather that made even that sea town wince, of ships pinned in their own harbors by ice, of a strange light seen far north, like lanterns in the sky's high rafters. Men muttered. Melisandre smiled at nothing anyone else could see. "The sky burns as the snow rises," she said in the yard, and Ed murmured to Jon. "It is nice to have a poet among us. It keeps hunger from getting lonely." Jon pinned the letter to the board in the hall. Men liked to see the way news was nailed where it would not blow away. He sent back a packet with numbers in it so Cotter would know how much barley they had and how many bellies the numbers meant. He wrote to the Shadow Tower to ask Dennis Mallister for more men who could lay stone without making it angry. He spoke with Tormund in the jail, as much with hands as with words, and with Leathers and the other wildlings who had survived their pride. "You spare the fat lord," Tormund chuckled when he heard of Slynt's new work. "You put him to scrape dishes. You do not even give him the bones." "He," Jon said, "is how I mean to learn who takes the bones." "Ah!" Tormund's grin widened, showing a place where two teeth had parted from their neighbors long ago. "You are your father's son, and you are not. Good. It is hard for a man to be two things at once. But you are long enough." Alliser Thorne began to work with the Southron boys in earnest. He bullied less than he sneered now. He had taken a shine to humiliating them with subtlety. "Oh, you are not in a sunny garden," he told them. "The sun here bites. Hold your sword as if your life were worth your bother. No, you stretch that thumb. You are not giving your blade a wedding ring." He glanced at Jon once and away. Later, he said to no one in particular, "If you mean to keep Slynt alive, I suggest you use him for more than polishing wood. He knows men. I hate to admit this, as I hate to admit I prefer warm boots to cold feet, but he does." Jon did use him. He sent him to Molestown to listen. He paired him with a ranger given to listening and not much else. He handed him a list and a seal and said, "Buy candles, not from the man with the best talk but from the one whose wife has no shoes. He will not cheat us. If he does, he will trip over his own guilt on the way to defrauding us again." Slynt brought back candles that burned slow and bright and stank only a little. He cut a deal with a widow whose son had died in the last ranging. She cried a little onto the wax when he told her to wrap them well so the snow would not eat them. He did not mock her for it, or at least he did not do so where anyone could hear. When Stannis moved to the Night Fort, he took his gravity with him, and Castle Black felt lighter for a day. Then the work rushed in to fill the weight like water entering a mold. The watch was a thing of habit. It became what it did each day. Jon made certain the days gave it a better shape. He declared a council twice weekly where the firsts could tell him where he was a fool. Yarwick told him about stone. Marsh told him about hunger. Alliser told him about men. Maester Aemon told him about boys who think their fear is a shame and men who know their fear is a tool. Slynt did not speak there. He attended twice, standing at the wall like a scorekeeper who knows the game is not for him to play, and he left no later than the earliest he could leave without making his leaving a statement. Ghost came with Jon to the top of the wall sometimes, when the wind was less fierce or when Jon needed the silent company of a creature whose thoughts were not knotted like men's. He would set his gloved hand on the crenel and look north. The trees there were a black brush on pale ground, and the sky beyond them had the emptiness of a table cleared after a feast. The night was a different feast. It put out more stars than his eye could rightfully count, and he knew that some of those lights had names and some did not, and a few men knew which were which, and those men were down below, snoring or telling the same story again as if it were new. The ravens showed agitation from time to time, throwing their sound down the corridors like dice shaken before a throw. A letter came from the south wrapped in wax that cracked like old bread. It bore a seal Jon did not like. He did not break it immediately. He put it on the table and let it sit where he could see it without seeing it. It watched him back. He had to decide whether words could hurt him more unopened than read. When at last he took up the knife and cut the wax, he found the Stark name where he did and did not want it. He folded the letter after. He put it away where it could not reach into his day from his coat. He went to the yard and watched boys fall and rise again under Alistair's eye. He watched men lift barrels and curse. He watched Ed look into a pot as if it contained the sum of his choices. He watched Janos Slynt carry a ledger with 2 fingers, careful not to smudge the ink where it had not dried. That evening he went to Slynt's pallet and sat on the edge of a stool 3 hands' breadth away. Slynt kept his space tidy. He had arranged 3 small objects at the head of his blanket. A bit of worn horn carved with a fish, a spool with 3 turns of brown thread, and a coin from a summer king. He did not touch them. He laid them out so he could see them and not have to grope. "You have a son," Jon said. It was not a question. Slynt's eyes remained on the coin. "I had." He picked it up, weighed it with 2 fingers. "He sits somewhere warmer now if he sits at all. I've learned not to make pictures I cannot walk to." Jon said nothing. It was not pity he felt, not exactly. Pity made the giver larger and the receiver smaller. This was more like standing in a wind you had both known. Have you ever swept filth out of a house into the street and watched the street carry it back? Slynt asked. The question dangled as if he had hooked it on the air and hoped a fish would take it. "I've mucked stalls that looked like that," Jon said. "Same thing," Slynt decided. "A city is a stall. You keep it clean for the people who can pay to sit on the dry side. You tilt the muck away from them toward the ones who'll wait it anyway. You think you've done a service. Then it snows, and the line between the dry and the wet is something else entirely. The world does that, moves lines. You will help me draw the ones we need," Jon said. Slynt glanced at him. "I already am. I know. You do not trust me. I am using you. That is different from trusting." Slynt lifted the coin to his ear and snapped it with a fingernail so it sang. "When a man tells you he trusts you, ask him where he keeps his food." Jon rose from the stool. "Hob keeps his knives in a box with a broken hinge. Then find the man who fixed it for him and see what else he fixes in his spare time," Slynt said and rolled onto his side back to Jon. It was not insolence. It was the way a city man ended a talk without saying "I am done." Days added themselves together. Yarwick got men on Greyguard with axes and the desire not to freeze their privy parts off. Alistair's boys stopped dropping their points when wind got in their eyes. Eamon drank his thin ale with honey more often. Bowen made a sound once like a laugh and then coughed to show it had been a mistake. Slynt caught a boy pocketing a bit of cheese, paid him for it, and told him that meant the boy owed the what. A good piece of news. The boy told him that one of Stannis's knights had been trading salt for favors that did not involve coin. Slynt took this to Jon, who took it to Melisandre. Melisandre told Stannis, and Stannis told the Snow. The Snow listened and punished the knight by giving him no place to put his feet. In the council, Slynt stood and did not speak, and only once said, "You will lose a cask of apples by week's end if Hob does not pack them harder. The rotten ones will infect the rest. Throw the bruised ones to the pigs or the boys first." "You did not speak last week," Bowen said, drier than kindling. "Last week the apples had not begun to bleed from the bottom of the cask," Slynt said. "Shall I dance when I have nothing to say?" "Gods forbid," Ed murmured. Letters came from Hardhome. They did not come in pretty ink. They did not come all at once. They filtered in on the backs of men who looked like thin wood where water has washed it for years. They said, "There are people here, many, hungry, cold, hard to move, harder to leave." They said, "The dead walk where the snow makes a sound like teeth when you step on it." They said, "We are out of words to say help." Jon read them with the skin between his shoulders shrinking. He could feel a shape being cast, one that might not fit in the rooms they had. He sent word. He sent ravens. He sent men north to see. Melisandre watched him and did not interfere. That frightened him more than when she spoke. Slynt came to him in the yard with his ledger under his arm. He had made himself a writing stick that did not freeze to his fingers. He had wrapped the end with a bit of well-oiled cloth. He said, "If you are going to move that many people, you will need carts. You do not have enough carts. You have wood, you have hands, you do not have wheels. The last cartwright died 2 summers ago. His boy drinks. He can be made to stop drinking if his wife decides she wants to make him stop. She will if you offer him a post better than empty bottles. You know this how? Because I ask. Because I listen. Because I bribe where a bribe will make a truth become proud enough to march where I need it to go. Jon looked at him. Arrange it. I already have, Slynt said. You will also want to move salt. For meat. For men. People will eat what they had sworn they would not when it is white for long enough. They will pretend not to know the taste of horse. But salt makes lies easy to swallow. Arrange that too, Jon said. Slynt's mouth twitched. If I arrange all, you will begin to think you cannot do without me. That will be a day that will teach you a lesson. I do not plan to learn that one, Jon said. Planning is how men amuse themselves while the world turns. He had to call the watch to the hall for the kind of speech he hated to give. Words stacked on words, meant to turn men's faces in the same direction. He was not his father in such matters, and he did not pretend to be. He did not try to speak like a northern lord. He spoke like Jon, shorter sentences, the edge of cold in them. We are going to bring in the living from hard home, he told them. Not because we like them, because they will die where they stand if we do not, and because they will become something else if they die there. We have seen what that looks like. We will not furnish the enemy. We will feed the living so we do not feed the dead. The room shifted. A shiver ran through it that was not wholly cold. Men did not like the word enemy spoken aloud when the thing it named had no face that could be put on a pike. They will steal, someone muttered. They will try, Jon said. And we will stop them. They will lie. We will catch them. They will fight. We will fight better. They will be grateful. They will not. None of that changes what we mean to do. A man with a scar that yawned when he chewed said, They killed my brother, and your brother would kill them again where he sits, Jon said. And the dead would kill us all if we let them. Grief wants the wrong things sometimes. I am sorry. I do not plan on making you happy. I plan on keeping you alive and making use of that life. Slynt stood near the doorway, catching the faces at the edges. The corners where men who had made up their minds before the first word was spoken chose to stand. He did not clap or call out. He stood instead like a weighman at a scale. Afterward, in the corner of the hall, he said to Jon in the low voice men used to try on a truth without letting it be heard too widely. You will need guards who know how to move through crowds. Men who can spot the one who wants to make a signal before he makes it. Your rangers are good in the trees. They do not know a mob. I do. You will teach them, Jon said. Quietly. Slynt's tongue made a small circuit of his lips, as if tasting a food he had not suspected would be to his liking. He said. I will. The next days were taken with lists. Jon had never imagined that command would mean so much writing. He had thought it would be more steel, more shouting. He learned instead the feel of wax under his thumb, the way a quill widens if you push too hard, the way a blot can make a good thought look foolish on the page. He learned the names of men who could make wheels, of women who could turn skins into sacks that would not leak, of children who could carry water and not knock their knees against the buckets by the third trip. Alliser grudgingly put a handful of his best eyes under Slynt's crooked instruction. It looked wrong. The proud knight with his mouth a stubborn line listening while the disgraced Lord of Watchmen showed boys how to see a knife under a cloak and how to feel when a crowd has decided it is an animal. The sound changes, Slynt said. It goes flatter. It goes wide. It stops caring for ears. I despise that you know this, Alliser told him and watched his hands. You despise the things that saved your life, Slynt. Eplead. We all do, some days. You will mind that tongue, Alliser snapped. I will, Slynt admitted. But not because you told me to. Because I've learned some life since I last lost it. They built carts. The boys swore at spokes and learned the lesson that would gives back only what you give it, and sometimes less. The women of Mole's town came up with baskets on their backs. Debt and hope shared between them in roughly equal measure. Melisandre watched the smoke of their breath and smiled in a way that made Ed tell Jon. If she ever asks me if I want to know my future, I will ask her if she plans to pay for it. What would you do with the coin? Jon asked. Buy a past, Ed said. One with fewer wolves and more blankets. Stannis sent down word, as was his manner, in the voice of a man who did not believe that words could fail him if they had come first to his mouth. He approved of the plan to rescue the wretched if it bound them. He did not approve of letting them settle where they would, untaxed by him and unwilling to say his prayer. Jon read the message, flattened the creases, and set it aside. He would be dealing with that soon. At dusk, Jon went again to the top of the wall. Ghost went with him, the direwolf's paws finding their way as if the ice were a path made long ago for his kind. The wind had softened into small hands. It was almost kind. He leaned into it anyway, because a man did not flinch from a kindly hand just because he suspected it of treachery later. The sky to the north looked like old iron. Between earth and that iron lay the forest, which knew more stories about men than men knew about trees. He thought of his sister, of brothers. He did not name them in his head. Names make sharp things sharper. He let something like love move through him without language. Then he let it go, because the thing he had chosen required both hands. A shout reached him only small through the wind, a bit of sound that barely had the strength to make the climb. A raven, heavier than usual, came thundering past his ear, wings beating with wide, slow sweeps. It circled once as if uncertain which man it despised more, Jon or the wind, then dropped toward the rookery. The message had the look of the north on it, smeared where a thumb had been clumsy with cold, edges rough where the knife had not found good purchase. It said what the earlier ones had said, but in fewer words. Fire in the snow, ice that moves like a living thing, too many mouths, not enough feet. It had a mark at the bottom, a crude half-circle with a line through it that Slynt recognized without saying anything. He turned the page with 2 fingers. This is a dock mark, he said, from a city far away. It says, ship safe here for coin. It is not a man's mark. It is a habit. The man who wrote this once loaded boats. He will know how to load a cart. You are sure? Jon asked. I do not have to be, Slynt said. I know what I know. I do not know, but that is different. Jon slept little. He did not dream the usual things. Snowfall, a white field without end, a sword he could not hold. He dreamed instead of a table strewn with buttons and string, each labeled, each leading to some other thing he could not quite keep in his hands. He woke with the feeling of strings cutting into his fingers. He lay in the dark, listening, while the keep creaked around him and men turned on bedfurs like boats shifting with tide. Ghost lifted his head. The wolf's breath came and went. Jon put a hand on the thick hair, felt the warm under the cold, and found his own chest measuring time with it. By morning the plan was a sled that needed pushing. He did not count on Stannis. He counted on Ed to find humor when it was least deserved. He counted on Hobb to make soup from the memory of meat. He counted on Alliser to turn boys' wrists into something that could keep their bones from being where other men wanted them. He counted on Bowen to keep his lists. He counted, now, on Slynt to find the rotten in the barrel before it could poison the lot. He counted on himself to swallow whatever else he had to swallow so that the watch could be more than a name. He sent a raven to Cotter Pike to say, "Carts are coming, we are making space." He sent one to the Shadow Tower. Send eyes to look north where the ice seems to move. He sent one to Stannis. We will take what men can spare to guard the crossing. He sent one to a man in Mole's Town whose husband had died in a rockfall. If she could smuggle, no, carry, children, not things, through a crowd without them getting lost. He sent one to a woman who had once been a whore and had a talent for putting fear in a child's hands so that it could hold on to an older boy's sleeve. He kept the letter from the south in his coat like a stone. He did not look at it. He felt it sometimes when he put his hand in and touched the crinkling and decided not to pull it out. Decisions could not be unmade by reading the moon again. He saved his unmaking for other things. On the day he chose to try the first convoy, the wind cooperated like a tired soldier. It did not push, it did not cheer. The carts, such as they were, some with wheels honest enough to make it to the tree line, some with runners that had been stolen from beds, lined like a thought that might yet be proven. The men harnessed to them were not horses. They were not happy. They tightened straps and grunted and spat and did it anyway. Women came with hooped baskets on their arms. Boys carried lengths of rope and pretended it made them men. Alistair looked sour and competent. Yarwick looked skeptical and competent. Bowen looked like a man about to argue with a god. Ed looked like a man who knew he would have to carry the back end of a thing his arms were not made for, but would do it and tell a joke about it later. Slynt did not stand at the front or the back. He stood in the middle where he could feel the shove of men on either side. He had a short stick in his hand, not a baton. Not a baton he would pretend was anything but a tool. He tapped the stick against his boot to find his own rhythm and then began calling count. Not loud, not soft. He put his voice where men's ears would be without the men having to turn for it. Left, he said when a wheel began to want right. Hold, he said when a man wanted to prove something that would not be a useful proof. You, he said to a boy of 15 with the stiff neck of someone uncertain where to put his stiffness. Walk behind that cart where the rope is tied sloppy. If it frays, you lift. If you lift too late, I will know. I know anyway. Move. He made himself useful. He made himself invisible to pride. That shocked Jon. He had imagined Slynt would never lay down his own story to carry someone else's. Yet here the man did so, if not gladly then at least completely. He did not look at Jon. He did not seek to be seen. They came back after dark with sled mouths, as Ed put it. Everything stretched thin where it had been pulled, men long and tight as rope, carts worn raw at the corners. They brought 10 people. Not many. Enough. One old woman with hands like twigs and a boy who had given up crying and a man with a cough high in his chest that made ghost pace. They put them to fire and gave them thin soup and told them more would come tomorrow, and the day after if the wind would let them. Janos Slynt stood outside the hall where the newcomers sat like dull stones around heat. Snow dusted his shoulders. He had a line on his face from where a rope had bit. Jon stepped beside him. They watched their breath blow and be lost. They will be trouble, Slynt said. Yes, Jon agreed. You could hang trouble? Slynt pointed out, not with malice, with the flat voice of a man pointing to a tool on the wall. I could, Jon said. You will not? Slynt went on. You will make it a shift, a list, and a day's work. Yes, Jon agreed again. Slynt nodded. Then we may live. He turned away then, not asking for anything. His step had a small hitch, the rope's bite perhaps, or a cramp he would not pamper. Jon watched him go, the shape of him against the snow. He thought about the goose fat they would rub into the ropes tomorrow to keep them from freezing. He thought about the way a man who had thrown good men to their deaths in a city now taught boys how to make knots you could trust. He thought about the line between these things. He did not forgive Slynt. He was not certain what forgiveness would even mean, but he knew how to count usefulness, and he knew when a man had placed himself where he could be used. The weeks after found the rhythm harsher. Snow came and went and came again. The carts broke and were fixed. Hob began to cheat in his soup with dried mushrooms that tasted like earth when the earth is frozen but made the broth feel fat to the tongue. Ed claimed he would sell his soul for a proper carrot. Bowen discovered that the tally that looked worse was sometimes learning to look better. Alistair swore less in front of boys. Slynt smiled once where he thought no one saw when a child he had ordered to hold a rope did so, and the rope held and no man fell. Eamon coughed with a sound like silk being torn in a quiet room and said to Jon, You are doing hard mercy. Is that what this is called? Jon asked. It is a name that fits in the mouth, Eamon said. That is sometimes enough. In the jail, Tormund took to telling the newcomers long stories they did not need but sat straighter for anyway. He gestured so wildly once he knocked his head against a bar and swore in the old tongue, then laughed so long Ed told him he was wasting breath he might need for walking. Better to use it before it freezes, Tormund said. There were ugly moments. There would always be. A boy stole a ring from a woman's finger where she slept. Slynt found him by asking who had looked at the woman's hands the most times that day. The boy cried when the ring turned up in his boot. Slynt made him stand in the yard and confess. He did not put a whip to him. Jon did not ask why. He did not want the boy learning what a whip felt like when the rope could teach him how to stand under something he had done without crumpling. Another man struck a guard, and Alistair struck him back harder and put him in a cell with straw that had seen too many days. The man apologized without being asked. He apologized to the guard and to the straw. Ed told him that was tasteful, considering the straw had not asked to be involved. Slynt began a ledger of different sort. He did not show it to Bowen or to Jon. It was for him. He wrote not just numbers but the names of men and women and children and the small true things he noticed about them. He wrote, "The woman with 2 scars on her left hand steals for others and not herself." He wrote, "The boy who looks for faces in knots learns faster if you do not watch him." He wrote, "The old man who coughs cannot walk on a cart. Put him under furs on a sled, pulled by 2 men who do not talk." He wrote it without vanity. He wrote it because a list of human answers sometimes makes the sum you need. He took an interest in the latrines. Most men did not, except to curse and hurry. Slynt watched where men chose to squat, and he noticed when a man who had always gone to one place stopped going there. He asked the right questions and discovered a pickpocket who had been using the shame of the latrines to shame other men into silence when he took from them. Slynt set him to cleaning those same pits for a week. He did not humiliate him in the yard. He humiliated him where the man had chosen to hide before. It was not kindness. It worked. When a fight threatened near the stables, 2 wildling boys and a boy of the south barking at one another like dogs over a bone, it was Slynt who stepped between and barked louder. "If you mean to fight," he told them, "then do it on your feet, in the ring, with men watching who will. Keep you from killing each other when you decide you do not want to be dead after all." He made them shake their arms out like boxers from the city. He taught them how to break fingers if they had to, and then made them promise not to. He made them stand 3 rounds and then sent them to hob for broth. They slurped and looked at one another like boys who had learned that another boy did not smell so different inside a heavy cloak. Jon did not grow comfortable. He did not require comfort. He required less sleep than most men, and when he took it like a man eating standing up, quickly and with his eyes on the door. He allowed himself a moment on the wall when the wind threw gold into the snow and when he thought, "This is the way light looks when it forgives snow for being itself." He allowed himself a moment at Ghost's ear, pressing his nose into the fur and breathing the smell of clean animal. He allowed himself a thought of home without reaching for the word Winterfell. Then he went back to Warden's work. On a morning when the cold had made all the iron in Castle Black complain in long creaks, a man came out of the forest carrying a child on his shoulders. He walked straight to the gate as if to a table set for him. He set the child down and stood, the helplessness in him so bright Jon could see it with his eyes closed. He said, "They would not come. They said the snow speaks their names in voices they trust." He wept then, and it was ugly. It was not a noble weeping. He wept like a man whose last coin had rolled into a crack. Jon put a hand on his shoulder. He did not speak. There are places words do not go. Slynt came to stand a little behind, his mouth pressed thin, and for a moment, just a moment, Jon saw the man who had once done some kindness to the wrong man in a city and had learned not to do it again for fear of the price. He saw the man learning again that sometimes the price is not an enemy. Sometimes it is simply the cost of belonging to the right thing. Stannis's letter came down, carried by a knight whose armor was polished beyond where it did any good, and told Jon what he already knew. "You must keep these people in hand. You must tax them in work, if not in coin. You must make them say the words that name the true king." Jon read it, folded it, set it aside. He told the knight what needed telling. He told Stannis later, with more words, that he would not put the watch to any words but their own. He told the watch that they would work and work until they forgot to call it tax. He told Slynt that if he heard prayers being traded for bread, he would break the hand that held the bread first and then the hand that held the prayer. Slynt said, "You will make of yourself a god if you do this." "I will make of myself a master of stores," Jon said, "as all men must, if they live long enough." And all the while the wall drank dawn and sunset, slow, as always. The nights made their wolves where it was dark enough. Ghost stood with Jon and did not speak and spoke too much. Eamon warmed his hands at a brazier and told a story about a prince who learned to count losses and gains and how the counting did not save him but made him less than a fool while he fell. Alistair taught boys how to put their feet so their mouths would not have to be brave. Ed found a riddle in a potato and solved it to his own satisfaction. Bowen made a tally that pleased him for a full day. Yarwick invented a way to brace a wheel with a wedge that any child could place without cutting his toes. Hob sang a song under his breath that had only one word in it, and that word was stew. And Janos Slynt learned how to say yes when a boy told him a truth and no when a man told him a lie, and did both without showing his teeth. He stood in the cold and did not shiver where men could see. He stood in the kitchens and let the heat take the ache out of his bones for a minute, and then he went back into the yard. He watched how a crowd breathes. He watched how a rope wears. He watched how men look away from things. He wrote names and numbers. He caught thieves and did not hang them, and he hung none and told no one what that felt like. He passed Ghost and reached his hand out once, and the direwolf sniffed it and tolerated him, which made Ed say later, "If Ghost starts to like him, I will have to find another monster to trust, perhaps a bear." If Jon had spared him to keep peace, he discovered he had bought something else besides, an education in the kind of war that does not use swords. When he had spared Slynt, he had not done it to be liked. He had done it in part to deny himself an easy story about being his father's son. He had also done it because he had a notion that the watch would have to become a different shape if it meant to hold against a winter with teeth. That shape, he learned, would include this man, grimed with kitchen grease, touched with rope burn, with a ledger tucked under his arm and a stick in his hand to make crowds do what they did not want to do. He stood with Ghost at the top of the wall again on a night when the stars had decided they would come out even if it was cold enough to hurt. The north lay like a promise that no one had made. Jon did not know what would come. He knew only that he had turned a face toward it and set his feet how Alistair would have him set them. One slightly forward, knees soft, weight ready. And he had in his pocket the small coin of a man he did not trust, and beside him the huge soft breath of a beast he did. He had a plan as thin as a winter soup and a list of names, and his father's name inside him like a banked fire, and the cold on his cheek like a truth that would not be argued with. Snow fell. Somewhere in the yard Hob laughed, without meaning to, at something Ed had said. Eamon's cough rapped softly like knuckles on a door. A boy in a cell whispered to himself to stay his fear until dawn. Slynt turned a page and wiped a smear of ink away with the edge of his hand and did not quite get it all. And the wall kept drinking the night, slow, so slow, what had always been its way.